to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4, Wolves, Scars, Bites, and Babies. Let's go Seattle. I really like this episode, as Jeffrey writes, Isaac is really coming close to filling the Joel hole in my heart. So I'm gonna break down this episode scene by scene for the details you missed, Easter eggs from the game, and any discussion of plot details from the game beyond what's covered in episode 4, I'm gonna save for our spoilers section at the end of this video. And if you are worried that Isaac might open your car and toss a grenade into it, make sure you're wearing this WLF hat, which you can get in our merch store, nerdwright.shop. It's the best way to support us here at New Rockstars, along with a bunch of other great Last of Us designs. Okay, we opened this episode in 2018 in the Seattle quarantine zone. So 15 years after Outbreak Day in 2003, 5 years before we catch up with Joel in Boston in 2023, and 11 years before the current present year of the show in spring 2029. We are in the period of time when Fedra was still running various QZs in major cities, but local militias were beginning to rise up and overthrow them. We open in a Fedra convoy as this soldier brags,
"You guys know me, like I'm easy on voters, right?"
Haha, this is Josh Peck of Drake and Josh.
Hug me, brother!
And now taking on some interesting roles and titles like Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, we learn in this scene that voters is the Fedra soldiers' mocking term for civilians since they stripped their voting rights away. This soldier says that he found people disseminating pamphlets.
WLF stuff?
I thought it was. Turned out later it was some like religious crap, but I didn't know that.
These guys are naive to the fact that the people disseminating those pamphlets were probably members of the Seraphite cult before they got too radicalized, a group that will later be at war with the wolves who replaced Fedra. Throughout the scene, there's one Fedra sergeant in the background on the right whose mask is down at first as his head is bowed over, but as the scene goes on, he starts to raise his head and we realize, hey, that's Jeffrey Wright, Isaac Dixon, and he is not laughing along with this story because he hates these guys. The young Fedra soldier Burton, who asks why they call them voters, is the one that Isaac will spare in a moment, probably because Burton is new and naive and not part of the same macho Fedra orthodoxy like the rest. Ulana Ubach, longtime actress from Legally Blonde, Waiting, the voice of Mama Imelda in Pixar's Coco, and Lexi and Cassie's mom on Euphoria, and recently Rhys Ifans' hippie wife in Venom 3, shows up here as Herron, an unnamed member of the WLF, judging by the WLFs tagged on the windows in the background. She wears a type of jacket that Joel wears, you know, a Huckberry type jacket. And hey, if you want this kind of outerwear, we do have like an affiliate link that you can click on the description that will also help support New Rockstars. Isaac and Herron greet each other, clearly having talked before, and Isaac tosses in grenades into the truck with the Fedra guys and closes the door and then shoots the driver. We are seeing the moment Isaac leaves Fedra to join the Washington Liberation Front. And this is a new backstory for Isaac. In the game, he was a Marine who lived in the Seattle area and hated Fedra, but wasn't known to have actually served for Fedra. It was believed he went right into the WLF. We don't really get a point of view scene for Isaac like this, just really interactions with Isaac from Abby's point of view. But this adds a new layer to the character to make him a Fedra sergeant who's just sick of the thoughtless idiots idolizing whoever that Greenberg dumbass is.
Because you're all Greenberg.
And it's just ironic that the Greenberg story that they were all laughing about was Fedra killing Seraphites that Isaac will later hate even more than he hates Fedra. I actually think this origin story was based on one of the notes that you find in a similar Fedra truck in the Seattle QZ in the game, where Isaac was riding a Fedra soldier, getting him to flip on the WLF, and all the soldiers inside that truck are burned just like these guys will end up being. Instead of a different Fedra soldier who betrayed his group and flipped to the WLF, it seems like they're making that soldier Isaac, and Herron is the WLF leader that he flips to. I wonder how he and Herron came into contact, because he later confesses that he was shy around women, and now I just kind of wonder if some Mabel saucepan cooking was involved. Isaac says to Burton,
"Now make your choice."
It's such a cool way to cut to the credits, because it's kind of like he's saying, hey, you viewer, if you're not digging season 2, here's where we're gonna expand the lore, so make your choice on whether you're with the show or not. As we pointed out last week, the opening credits have been updated, so now it's only Ellie's fungal stalk all by itself, no Joel stalk at her side, but the surrounding stalks are all pinkish now that it's springtime, unlike the stark gray everything was in episodes 1 and 2 of this season. And you'll see this episode was directed by Kate Herron, who directed the episodes of the first season of Marvel's Loki on Disney+. It's probably why I love this episode so much. Back in the present day, Ellie and Dina raid a Weston's pharmacy, that's the chain of pharmacies in the world of games, and the series, it's based on Walgreens. Dina finds a cream for yeast infections.
You rocking a yeast infection?
Not today, but give me time.
Ha! Yeast infection is technically a fungus down there from the Candida albicans that live on her skin. Ellie's response sets up her reveal at the end of this episode that she cannot get infected by cordyceps. Dina finds something else that we don't see in this scene, but later it's confirmed that she finds pregnancy tests. She vomited when they found the slaughtered Seraphites last episode, and after Dina takes a while to pee, Ellie can sense something different about her vibe when she gets back to Shimmer. They take Shimmer through the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle, where they can see rainbow flags and pride murals. Capitol Hill became Seattle's main LGBTQ neighborhood starting in the 1960s. They passed through a similar neighborhood with rainbows at this point in the game, but since Ellie and Dina were born after Outbreak Day and in places where things like pride wasn't really talked about, they don't know what this iconography means.
What's up with all the rainbows? I don't know. Maybe they were all optimists.
In a way, the people who put up these flags were optimists because gay marriage still was not legal in the United States in September 2003. So now they're living in a post-apocalyptic America where that dream was never realized legally. So when Ellie later learns Dina is pregnant, her supportive reaction and her excitement to have a family is just kind of baked in pure, wholesome love. Also similar in the game, when you first explore the Seattle QZ, Ellie and Dina discuss hearing how Seattle was bombed, which recalls Tess telling Ellie about the bombings of Boston and the flashback to Ratna and Jakarta, where she said, "A bomb is the one way to stop the outbreak." They pass an early 2000s model of a VW Bug, just another example of the good attention to detail in this world of everything being frozen in 2003. And then they find this tank, and Ellie looks inside.
3 burnt skeletons, like Apollo 1. What?
Ellie explains astronauts Grissom, White, and Chafee, who were supposed to go to the moon, but never made it off the launch pad when a pre-flight test on January 27, 1967 resulted in a fire sweeping through the command module. Ellie also brings up this history in the game, including Ellie's line of these guys being assholes killed by other assholes.
One of the early moon missions, there was an electrical fire and the astronauts burned up in their capsule.
Well, at least they died for something worthwhile.
Exactly. These guys were just assholes killed by other assholes.
And this is yet another example of Ellie's interest in NASA and space exploration. Dina sees WLF painted on the satellite for the Channel 13 KMAB TV news station, the same station with the very unlucky number that they visit in the game. But in the game, Ellie and Dina see WLF painted on the walls of the QZ when they first arrive, warning them that trespassers will be shot. Also, like in the game, Ellie and Dina explore the Valiant music shop. You can see the record store logo that's taken directly from the storefront sign in the game. In this scene, you can see a sticker and a poster for Hallican Drops. That's a fictional band from the world of the game that Joel's daughter Sarah was into. And in the pilot episode of this show, Sarah wears a Hallican Drops tour shirt. Neil Druckmann has said that the name for this band came from his daughter, who named one of her plushies Hallican Drops when she was 2. The records that Ellie flips through include Legend by Bob Marley and the Wailers from 1984, Like Love by Andre Previn from 1960, On Stage with Benny Goodman and a sextet recorded live in Copenhagen 1972. Behind that is Living Brass, music from The Graduate and other Simon & Garfunkel hits, and The Hurting by Tears for Fears. Ellie appreciates The Hurting cover art, which depicts a crying child, as this album was conceived by Tears for Fears as a commentary on child abuse. But this also is hitting Ellie at an interesting point in her life as a daughter figure mourning a father figure, and someone who's about to realize her girlfriend is pregnant, as Ellie will be facing the prospect of raising a baby. But also, Tears for Fears is just like a classic 80s band, right? And if we consider Bill and Frank's radio song code from season 1, songs from the 1980s signified trouble coming. So lingering on this album from 1983 for just a moment signifies they're about to run into some trouble here in Seattle. Now, in the bin, you can also make out Aaliyah's third and final self-titled studio album from 2001, and on the wall is the Beck album Sea Change from 2002 and Sublime's 40 Ounces to Freedom from 1992. In the stairwell, there's a Pearl Jam poster near the Hallican Drops poster. Pearl Jam's Future Days is a big part of the game and actually makes an appearance in the following scene of the game. And you can see a poster for Burning Man Beyond Belief. In 2003, Burning Man's theme was indeed Beyond Belief, and it took place from August 25th to September 1st, 2003. And again, the outbreak day on the show was September 26, 2003. And I just love the irony of this poster for a festival where they cosplay in this post-technology wasteland, and these people would soon be living in it. Ellie goes to the upper floor, which is a beautiful version of what we see here in the game. Now there's a huge hole in the wall that's covered in vines, allowing the sunlight to hit everything just right, while the guitars on the walls have been damaged by the humidity and the various elements, there's one unopened case where the humidifier packs kept the guitar from any damage, and Ellie kisses them with gratitude because this guitar is perfect. In the game, Ellie starts to strum and sing Pearl Jam's Future Days when Dina finds her, and then she switches to a-ha's Take On Me. But here she starts with Take On Me, partly because Pearl Jam's Future Days came out in 2013, but Take On Me is also very important because we know that's a song that Ellie remembers from her time in the mall with Riley. This is one of the most beloved cutscenes in the game, and beyond Bella Ramsey nailing this performance, it's Isabella Merced's reaction that sells it. Just dreamily lost in Ellie's singing, her eyes never leaving Ellie's eyes. And though we've heard the song hundreds of times, only now do the lyrics of Take On Me, Take Me On, I'll Be Gone in a Day or Two make so much sense, because it's talking about the way love needs to be expressed in the moment, because you don't know how long you're gonna have with someone, and that just really rings true here in the post-apocalypse. Ellie says Joel taught her well, and Joel did promise that he would teach Ellie how to play back in season 1. We have not seen that tutelage, but now we do see the results of it. In the official after show podcast, Neil Druckmann explained how many of the anecdotal environmental storytelling that Ellie and Dina unearth in the Seattle QZ, and even this guitar moment, are optional for the game player. Like, it is possible to go through the Seattle area and not experience these precious little moments. And that's part of why they're so beloved among gamers, because they feel precious and unique to them. And I think that lends these vignettes with a bit of organic naturalism. The writing can kind of work its way into these moments without feeling inevitable, and we can savor them the way they should be savored. And in the game, when Ellie plays Take On Me for Dina, it is long after they hooked up. Now, on the show, the song comes before they hook up, and it plays more like a timid serenade. And Isabella Merced gets to show it really having a transformative effect for Dina. Like, in her eyes, you can see the moment she truly falls in love with Ellie. Ellie leaves this guitar behind, the last of the guitars. It's a little sad that Ellie doesn't put the guitar back in the case with the humidifier packs, dooming this perfect instrument to warp and decay from the humidity like the other exposed ones. But I think it's because Ellie doesn't plan to set any roots here in Seattle or come back here after her mission is complete. We cut from Dina jokingly saying she's gonna make beef jerky for dinner to a close-up of a kitchen stove burner lighting up. So we think an actual dinner might be prepared here, but no, it's Isaac's torture session. The closest we get in the game to this Isaac moment is a scene later in the game when Abby walks in at the end of a torture session. But now Craig Mazin wrote and Jeffrey Wright performs perfectly this monologue about how he would try to impress women by cooking for them.
I would go into Williams-Sonoma, it's a cookware store, you wouldn't know, and I would stare at these Mauviel, best of the best, French, of course.
The fact that the Seraphite he's talking to, Malcolm, wouldn't know what Williams-Sonoma is tells us that he's talking to a younger man, born or raised post-outbreak in this brainwashed cult. Isaac says that he would do the math of being able to afford this saucepan after 30 years of retirement, plus pension, which tells us that the show version of Isaac probably was still a Marine. Isaac says,
And I was right, just not how I planned. The strange benefits of the apocalypse.
But it doesn't seem like Isaac uses cookware to prepare nice meals, but really just as instruments of torture, because he compares the conductivity of copper versus cast iron this way.
Of course, this means it doesn't retain heat the way cast iron does, which of the two makes copper the inferior choice for interrogations, but...
And on this line, the camera turns to a very skinny, stripped down Seraphite named Malcolm, completely in the nude, so that we can't even show you the blurred out version of this angle. Malcolm says,
She watches over me.
Then she's been watching you get your ass kicked.
He, of course, is talking about the Prophet, the Seattle area woman who started the Seraphite cult and has long been dead. Isaac says that she's just a woman, and some scars know that, but Malcolm here is a true believer who calls those heretics. Of course, the Seraphites are the cult that you meet in the Seattle area at this point in the game, at war with the WLF Luddites, who use bows and arrows and hammers and simple weapons. Isaac in this scene confirms that they also use bolt-action rifles. They follow in the teachings of their founder, the Prophet, who died before the events of the game, and we never meet the Prophet, but there is some thinking that at some point over the next 3 episodes, we might flash back to see the origin of the Prophet during Outbreak Day or shortly after. Also, in the official After Show podcast, Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin explained how this Seraphite's devotion to the Prophet, a woman who probably died before he was born, and now a spiritual figure who has guided his life up until this point, is really meant to be parallel to Ellie's quest to now fight for the memory of the ghostly, saintly figure of Joel Miller. Like, this story is all about how love can lead us off of cliffs, and there is a certain insanity to Malcolm holding out his hand to to be punished, and what we're now seeing Ellie do and what we will increasingly see her do. Isaac, meanwhile, doesn't look as aged as Isaac in the game does, though both are played by Jeffrey Wright, but this Isaac does have the scar across his forehead, similar to the mark that we see on Isaac's character design in the game, and I feel like there's going to be an interesting story there. I just like the idea that Isaac is scarred, and there are all kinds of scars on the scars. The show also added the canonical detail of Isaac having the brother named Ed, who was connected to the Salt Lake City Fireflies, mentioned in the first episode of the season. Craig Mason said that everything about the origin of the WLF versus Seraphite conflict are deliberate mysteries that will be answered in season 3. He also added in the podcast an interesting analogy for mystery crafting in TV shows. Gradually unraveling the mystery is science, revealing the answer is music. Today's video is sponsored by Blue Chew. Spring is here. Everybody's walking around the neighborhood flaccid as a wet noodle and wondering what mail order solutions exist to help us regain our youthful vigor in the bedroom. Well, maybe not everybody, but for those who are, there's Blue Chew. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. It's super easy too. Just sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night. That way you can plan ahead or be ready for whenever an opportunity arises. And if you're skeptical or don't think you need it, try it free for a month and see. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use our promo code Rockstars. Just pay $5 in shipping. That's promo code Rockstars. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's video. When we see Malcolm's face in close-up, I love the layers of his wounds. Like, you can see fresh bleeding cuts, scrapes, and bruises from the torture, but distinctively older cheek scarring that would have healed over from the ceremonial scarring that the Seraphites do to each other and to themselves. Isaac burns the top of Malcolm's hand and accuses them of putting an arrow through a little boy's head, to which Malcolm replies that the wolves have killed kids. Indeed, Ellie and Dina did find the WLF having massacred a group of Seraphites, including a little girl. Isaac at first entertains the blame cycle.
Because you broke it, because we broke it. I'm not playing your little chicken and egg games today, Scar. Where is the next attack?
Malcolm says the WLF will inevitably lose because every day one wolf converts to the Seraphites and none of the Seraphites ever convert back. Malcolm holds out his other hand to be burned, so Isaac just puts him down. Outside, the previously unseen door guard says the Scar got what he deserved, and we realize it's that young Fedra soldier from 11 years prior in the opening scene, Burton, played by Ben Ehlers. So he did make his choice, and 11 years later, he is ride or die for Isaac more than ever. Ellie and Dina make it to the KMAB 13 station, which in the game was modeled on the Seattle area Como 4 news station. I always like the details on the show where characters have to kind of talk through the tactics of how they're going to get through an area. In this case, they see an open window with a ladder leading up to it that's accessible from a crate, which hits the feeling of trying to make it through these types of areas in the game. Like, you kind of have to be like, oh, you could go up there, that has tripwires on it, don't go that way, that ladder is kind of a dead end, let's go up this way. Dina asks,
and if we run into wolves that weren't in Jackson?
Agreed.
I think they included this line to cover for the fact that in the game, before you get to the TV news station, there are other wolves that Ellie and Dina seek and find before getting to the news station, but I'll talk about those in the spoilers just in case they end up coming up in episodes 5, 6, or 7. There's blood on the window glass that they come through. I assume that was from one of the Seraphites who broke in there to kill the wolves. They find one wolf plugged with arrows, and then 5 others hanging with their entrails spilling out. One of the grislier moments at this part of the game, but unlike the game where Ellie and Dina are just pretty shocked, now we get to see Bella Ramsey and Isabella Merced's freaked out reactions, which escalate nicely from their discovery of the dead Seraphites in episode 3. Like, after so many years of relative peace in Jackson, now they've maybe forgotten a bit how horrific human versus human war crimes can be. While in the game, it's the daytime when you find these hanging bodies, now it's at night, and therefore spookier. And they use the TV set lighting to project up on the bodies, suggesting the Scars who killed them wanted them to be on display like an art piece. Just like she did with the dead Seraphites, Dina's stomach is easily turned due to her pregnancy. Ellie finds the Seraphite symbol in blood with the phrase, "Feel her love." But before we can feel bad for the wolves, we overhear the wolves who arrive saying they're very okay with killing kids.
I don't give a shit if it's a woman or a kid. I don't care if it's a fucking baby. Look what they did.
Really, dude? A baby strung up these corpses and wrote, "Feel her love" on the wall? Really, I think what he's suggesting is Seraphites often travel with their kids and might be okay using kids as human shields, so, don't let that get in your way. Ellie tackles a wolf from behind, and while her sparring sessions in the barn somewhat prepared her for this moment, I like that she still needs Dina's help to shoot the other guy in the back of the head, so she stabs her guy in the neck, which is the way Ellie kills wolves at this point in the game. You have to kill so many human beings. Ellie and Dina crawl through a rubble that leads to the transit tunnel, and it seems like this tunnel was imploded to keep whatever infected are down here in the subway station trapped underground. The subway tunnel is also pretty frightening setting at this stage in the game, but this episode heightens it here to be even worse. It starts with a great visual choice of the wolves using the flares to light the place up red. The designers of the game and the art designers of the show wanted to use the color red to indicate danger, and Neil Druckmann confirmed that we will be seeing this color motif in the upcoming episodes. And we get a parallel shot to the final shot of season 2 episode 1 as sparks are lighting up on the ground as boots pass us in the foreground, and those sparks alert some of the snaking tendrils that go unnoticed initially in the dirt. Using the show's rule of cordyceps hive network underground, this alerts nearby runners and clickers. Dina listens and counts the number of different infected on her fingers, reminding us of their 1 and 2 nonverbal communication back in the grocery store in the season premiere. And once she gets to more than 5, they don't need to keep counting. They know they're screwed because a 3-to-1 ratio is just not something they can handle. Another thing that this show can do that you can't really experience in the game is scale. Like when you play as Ellie or as any other character, your point of view only shows you the limited number of infected that get close enough to you to cause you harm. It can be implied that there are more, especially if you work through a section and keep running into more and more of them, but you never get a big shot of a full swarm because the camera can never leave a character's point of view like that, and if you have that big of a crowd coming at you, it would mean you're dead. But here, as with the Horde attacking Jackson in episode 2, this show benefits from being able to point the camera at like 20 or so extras and stunt people, and it just makes it so more intense. Back in episode 3, the Seraphite girl asked her father if the threat that was stalking them were demons, which told us that the Seattle area has a particularly bad problem with infected coming from underground, making them come off like a demonic threat that plagues the wolves and the Seraphites equally. And this is especially the case as they work down the train cars. In the game, the train car kind of just drops out from under Ellie's feet, and there's like a bunch of clickers that come at you one at a time. But here we get the context of dozens of infected pounding on the walls all at once, pushing the car, pressing against that spongy connected part between the cars, giving us a claustrophobic anxiety. The infected smash through the windows of the cars. This whole second half of the episode just captures so well the feeling of playing these parts of the game, because while the world feels immersive, like you could go anywhere, your actual path is kind of dictated for you by the context, like the one safe route forward, and the path behind you always gets cut off by danger. Ellie and Dina escape out the top hatch and run down the top of the cars. An infected in a yarmulke shirt spots them. That's the nearby Washington City, and they run up the escalator and find a rusty turnstile. Turnstiles like these are particularly frustrating to try to get through in this part of the game. When a runner nearly gets Dina, Ellie stretches out her arm to take the bite. It's the same arm where she got bitten while she was with Riley in the mall, just on a lower part of the arm now. In the game, it goes down a bit differently. This whole area, since it's underground, is filled with airborne spores, so Ellie and Dina have to mask up. And then Ellie gets tackled and her mask gets shattered, which then freaks Dina out, but Ellie's like, it's fine, I'm immune, and it happens a lot faster. Now it makes it a direct sacrifice that Ellie does for Dina, and it sets it up in a really great way when they talk about it later. In this scene, we get a lot of great moments of Isabella Merced taking in this information and gripping her gun and weighing what to do. Ellie finds the Pinnacle Theater, the location they hole up next in the game. The devs based its look on the real-life Paramount Theater in Seattle on Pine Street. In the game, on the marquee is a play called Cassandra, which inside the theater you find a program for, An American Tragedy, Cassandra. When that appeared in the game, you could actually see some parallels with the Greek mythological figure of Cassandra, a princess cursed by the gods to be able to see the future but not be believed by anyone. So she sees how her brother Paris will kidnap Helen of Troy, and that will lead to the destruction of her people. And I always saw a connection between Cassandra and the Prophet, actually. But here in the show, the marquee is a different game Easter egg. Pinnacle presents Sick HA, and you can barely see the faded out parts of the sign so that it actually reads Sick Habit, playing from September 2nd. The Sick Habit is the name of a band in the universe of The Last of Us, whom you find a flyer for a show that they're gonna do at the Pinnacle Theater for their album Bricks Shit Houses. In the game, when Ellie wears her red flannel shirt, her undershirt is a Sick Habit shirt. So in addition to this being a theater for plays, it's also a venue that does music concerts. This episode greatly expands the immunity reveal between Ellie and Dina to a pretty tense standoff, and Isabella Merced makes it seem like she's really about to shoot Ellie in the head, distrusting Ellie's explanation at first as just her making up stuff to stay alive. Ellie tells Dina to just keep her gun on her, that Ellie's gonna go to sleep and wake up exactly how she is now. She's making the promise for herself that she made to Sam in Kansas City. Just go to sleep. sleep, you'll wake up the same. And the way Ellie sits across the room while she sleeps is exactly what Joel and Tess did all night at the start of season 1, episode 2, after they pulled the all-nighter to make sure that she was not going to turn. Ellie wakes up to water dripping on her head, twitching in a way that initially comes off that she might be having muscle spasms, but we stay in Ellie's point of view so that we only see Dina from behind a blinding flashlight. Like Ellie isn't allowed to look Dina in the eye until Dina knows for sure that she can believe Ellie. Ellie shows her the bite and how hours later still no tendrils have snaked through. Then Dina switches to a lantern so Ellie can see her because now it's her turn to be vulnerable. She chooses now to reveal that she's pregnant. Now in the game, it all goes down a lot faster, from Dina trusting Ellie's immunity to revealing her pregnancy, and then Ellie's reaction is way different in the game. She's like, what are we gonna do now? And then she leaves Dina alone as you go exploring the theater, and that's kind of a bummer in the game. And I like the change here. Ellie now has more humanity in her response, more of an optimistic glimpse at a future for the two of them. And it was easy to overlook before, but Ellie just told Dina, I would die for you. And that's an incredibly romantic admission that deserves more of a reaction. In the game, Ellie and Dina hook up earlier when, the morning after the dance, they go on patrol together. They're the ones who find Eugene's weed farm and they get high and they hook up. And that's followed by the moment Abby finds Joel. But the show delayed their hookup and this moment when Dina confirms her bisexuality until after the two are finally open and honest with each other on their most personal secrets. So now the physical part is a celebration of life. Ellie having been doomed or dead in Dina's eyes to now being alive again, and Dina in Ellie's eyes being a vessel for life and giving society a future. So they wake up in each other's arms and Dina gives her the jerky so they won't have morning breath. It's easy to forget that the characters of this world are probably dealing with some dank smells with these corpses everywhere. Dina talks about imagining a future together, and we reminded of the way Ellie talked about the pride flags as being a sign of optimism. And now we see a rainbow-like pattern on the stripes of Dina's jacket behind Ellie's head as she looks up at her. Dina shares her history of being bi and how she told her mom that she liked boys and girls, and her mom denied it and told her that she liked just boys. And she tried to make it work with Jesse and even went back to him during their breakup period, but it's Ellie she wants to be with. And Dina did take multiple tests, though the accuracy of one at-home pregnancy test is 99% and almost never gives a false positive. Ellie says,
So we're having a baby.
and Dina is so taken by Ellie saying we, and then Ellie makes it even sweeter.
I'm gonna be a dad.
Yes, it's a twist on the heteronormative roles of parents, but for Ellie, the most meaningful parental relationship she can remember is with Joel, her dad. She wants to be the kind of parent that Daddy Joel was for her. They hear a wolf conflict over the radio at Lake Hill, and they deduce that's where Abby would be. Ellie tears up because she knows that Dina is pregnant, and she wants to keep Dina out of harm's way, but Dina refuses to stay behind because Joel was a father figure to her too, so she offers her hand.
Together.
All right, let's end in the spoilers section. If you haven't played the game or don't want to know what happens in the game, here's a good time to stop watching. Okay, one of the biggest changes from the game in this part is that in the game, Ellie and Dina are actually following Tommy's footsteps, as Tommy was the first to go up to Seattle to avenge Joel. It's Tommy's dead horse that causes Dina to vomit, and they find one of the wolves that was in Abby's group, Nick, after Tommy had tortured him for information. Doesn't seem like Tommy's gonna be joining them in Seattle for the show, especially after episode 3, but it is possible that he comes in later. Also, this part in the game has Ellie and Dina looking for others in Abby's group and getting taken by Jordan, but luckily getting free from Jordan and killing him. And they also look for Jordan's girlfriend Leah, who was also part of that group in the game, but she's dead by the time they can find her, killed by the Seraphites. I don't think Nick or Jordan or Leah are gonna be in season 2. We haven't heard any casting information about them, but they might show up at some point in the future. Also, I think the show kept the grisly story of the deaths of the Apollo 1 crew to keep Ellie's interests in NASA and space travel at the front of our minds for when we get the flashback episode to Ellie's birthday and the museum visit and the Apollo 11 tape moment. I think that's coming in episode 6, and that flashback, I predict, we will also learn what happened with Joel and Eugene. And lastly, based on where we are halfway through the season, I think there is time for Jesse to catch up with them. We see him with them in the trailers in Seattle, and for Ellie to find Owen and Mel and Nora and do those awful things to them. And I think it's gonna hit harder based on Ellie's reaction to Dina's pregnancy in this episode. I feel like in the finale, episode 7, we're gonna end with the blackout from the game when Abby tells Ellie, and you wasted it, and has her at the gunpoint. But the question is, will this finale episode end there? Or will we have an additional scene that jumps back to Abby back in the past at St. Mary's with her dad? Are we gonna end this season by starting with Abby's day 1? I say that because Caitlin Dever is so good, and I think a lot of us wouldn't mind a promise for season 3 being that we're gonna spend a lot of time with her as a focal character for that season. Comment down below with your thoughts, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Rick Denmon, who supports us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all 3 channels on the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.